Alright guys, today we're going to talk about finding the equation for the inverse function. So remember, we've talked about inverses actually before, so this is a new idea, but we have talked about inverses a lot. For example, we use inverses when we want to get rid of addition. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So when I put those two together, they cancel each other out. Same thing with multiplication and division. Same with exponents and radicals. Those cancel each other out. So inverses cancel each other out. Alright, now the one thing we're going to talk about is inverse notation. So you'll have to know this for the end. So at the end, you'll talk about inverse notation. So inverse notation it's f inverse of x. So it's got a little -1 there. So this is how you say f of x means a function. So that just means a regular function. That means inverse function. So you say f inverse of x. That's how you say that. This one you just say f of x. So basically what this means is that I'm going to find a function that if I were to plug in x, it would just cancel the whole function out. The easiest way to do that is to switch x and y. So I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to take this. I'm going to rewrite it. So f inverse. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it that way first. I'm going to make the f of x a y. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make f of x into y. So I'm going to rewrite it as y equals 5x plus 8. Alright, now I'm going to change. I'm sorry, I'm going to change. I'm going to say switch x and y. So I'm going to say x equals 5y plus 8. I just switched x to y. Now I'm going to solve for y. So I want y by itself, so I'm going to minus 8 from both sides. So I get x minus 8 equals 5y. Now I have to divide both sides by 5. So I get y equals x minus 8 over 5, or sometimes you'll see it written like this. Either one of those is okay, so it's either this or this. Now the last thing you have to do is you have to tell me that you understand this, that this is actually not y, this is actually f inverse of x. So I'm going to use f inverse of x instead of y. So instead of y, I'm going to use f inverse of x. Alright, so instead of y at the end. So it's a pretty simple idea. So now I'm just going to put f inverse of x. So I would change this one. Instead of y, I'm going to put f inverse of x. So just f with the little -1 means f inverse of x. F inverse, I'm going to make it a little bigger. F inverse of x. That's it. That's how we do that. All right. So it's not super complicated. It's a different idea, but it's not a super complicated process. So the process is pretty easy. So we're going to follow these steps. So whenever I tell you to find the equation of the inverse, which is right here, I'm going to switch x and y. All right. And then I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to write f inverse of x for y. That's pretty simple. Alright, number 2, find the equation for the inverse. So once again, I'm going to know that, so this last part should say, recall f of x and y are the same thing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite that. Instead of f of x, I'm going to put y equals 3x to the 4th. Now this part right here, this x is greater than or equal to 0 part, that's going to be at the end, and you'll see why it matters at the end. So if you ever see any little bit at the end like that, that just matters at the end. So we're not going to worry about that right now. So I'm going to switch x and y. So wherever I see an x, wherever I see a y. So x equals 3, y to the 4th. So I switched x and y. Now I want y by itself. So the first thing I got to do is I got to get rid of the 3. So I'm going to divide by 3. Remember, you get rid of the multiplication before division. So at this point, I'm just using PEMDAS backwards. So when I solve for y, I'm just using PEMDAS backwards. Even though there's more than one variable, I'm just basically pretending x is not a variable. At the moment, I only care about the y variable. So I solve for y. I get y to the 4th equals x over 3. Now to get rid of the 4, I have to use the 4th root. And if I do that to one side, I do it to the other side. Now, since 4, remember that's the index, is even, when I write my answer, I have y equals plus or minus the 4th root of x over 3. Alright? Now, so I have to remember plus or minus. Now, when I put f of 1 back in, this is what tells me whether I use the positive or the negative. If that was greater than, if that's positive, I use the plus sign here. If that said, if this changed and for some reason said then I would use the negative. Alright. Now I could make you go further here because really that's not simplified, so we could even simplify that, but as of right now I'm not going to make you simplify that. So remember the last thing I'm going to do is write f inverse of x. So I say f inverse of x equals just the positive, the 4th. Actually, I am going to simplify it. It just bothers me that it's not simplified. So I'm going to take the radical at the top of the bottom. Now, I'm going to remember, the only thing I'm going to do is remember we can't have radical on the bottom, so I'm going to make my box. And that's equal to 1. I'm going to put the 4th root of 3 cubed all over the 4th root of 3 cubed, because that's just going to give me 3 on the bottom. So really the best answer, now I would take, this answer is totally fine, but I think the best answer would be the f inverse of x equals 3 cubed is 27, so the 4th root of 27x all over 3. And that's the best answer. I would take either one of them, though. Keyword is heart. Keyword is heart.